So this is going to take us about an hour, and I'm going to be going through each of the steps of cooking spaghetti, teaching them to you one at a time. And I'll tell you about it, I'll show you how to do it, and then you'll have a chance to practice each of the steps.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about this before, but remind me what happened the last time you cooked spaghetti.
Well, it ended up in a big, gooey, ooey lump.
Just all stuck together.
All stuck together.
Okay, so that's why you wanted to learn to cook spaghetti, because you wanted to be able to do it so that it comes out all the strands separate.
Right.
Now, when I say cooking spaghetti, what we're going to talk about really is cooking the pasta, boiling the pasta until it's soft enough to eat.
Okay.
And even though I'm talking about cooking spaghetti, what you're going to learn applies to other kinds of pasta.
Really?
So what other kinds of pasta do you like besides spaghetti?
Oh, I think I like all kinds of pasta. The kind that comes in an elbow shape, and there's curly noodles and all kinds.
Okay, so in addition to spaghetti, you like these other kinds, and we can talk a little bit later and practice later cooking the other kinds of pasta too, but we're going to start with spaghetti.
Okay.
All right, so we talked about what it is. It's boiling the pasta till it's soft. We talked about why it's important, because you like spaghetti, and also spaghetti is a pretty low-cost meal. It's a good meal. It's filling, pretty low-cost, pretty healthy meal. And there are 3 big steps. The first step is that you boil the water, then you add the spaghetti, and then you drain the spaghetti. And we'll go through each of the parts, because each of the parts has to do with doing it in a way so it doesn't stick together.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go through, tell you about it, show you about it, then you're going to have a chance to practice.
Okay.
All right. So I have some notes over here, and I'm just going to, from time to time, be turning over here to look at the notes. I want to be sure I don't leave anything out. All right. So the first part of boiling the water is choosing the right pot. Now, we've got one pot here on the stove, and this is the one that I like to use for cooking spaghetti when you're just cooking for 1 or 2 people. If you use this kind of a pot, this is much too small.
Yeah, for spaghetti.
For spaghetti. It's hard to get the big spaghettis into the little pot.
Right.
And it also doesn't give them enough room to move around, and that's partly why they stick together, is that people sometimes use too small of a pot. Now, I'll show you another pot. This pot is really too big of a pot. Now, we already put water in it, but I wanted you to look and see how much water is in there. See, it doesn't come all the way up to the top.
Right.
And why do you think it would be important not to fill it all the way to the top?
Because once it starts to boil, it can come over the top.
That's exactly right. It would boil over the top if you have too much water. The next part is to bring it to a rolling boil. Do you know what is a rolling boil?
Yes, that's when you can see the bubbles across the top.
Right, so you're going to turn it on.
Okay.
You know how to operate the stove. We did that before. And so that's the first part of, remember there were 3 steps. Boiling the water, adding the spaghetti, and draining the spaghetti. This is the first part of boiling the spaghetti. How did you think that went so far?
Pretty good.
Are there things that are different from the way we boiled the water, from how you did it before when you had the big clump?
Not really.
Okay, so the boiling the water is pretty familiar to you.
Yep.
All right, great. All right, now I'm going to show you about how to measure spaghetti.
Okay.
This is a spaghetti measuring tool. And it says on it different amounts.
Yep.
So this amount says 1 adult or a teenager.
Right.
But if you don't have this spaghetti measuring tool, you can make an OK sign.
Like that?
Yes, and why don't you check and see, go underneath and see if that's about the right size.
Looks about
What
right.
do you think?
Looks about right.
Yes. So, do you want to try measuring using the tool, or do you want to try measuring
Oh,
using...
let's see if I can fit it in here.
Okay.
Here it is. There's my okay sign.
Okay, why don't you test it against the tool just to see if that's about the right amount.
Goes right in there.
Okay. What I like to do is break it in half. Now, you'd think that you'd break it, snap it like this, but actually, if you twist it, it will break easily. So watch how I twist it. Before you do it, watch how I twist it. I'm going to twist it, and it's going to break them in two pieces, and then I'm going to drop them kind of one at a time into the pot. So I twist it like this, and it breaks, and then I sort of sprinkle them into the pot, like that. And that helps keep them from clumping together. Now you try it. And I'll show you, I'll pour about half the water in, and then you can pour the rest of the water in. Then what you want to do is take your two mitts, and you want to carefully hold the pot by two hands. So
Very
it's
careful.
important to use a pot that has the double handles on it. And I like to hold not just the handle, but to hold it right close against the pot, so I feel like I've got a good grip on it. And when I get over to the sink, I like to dump it pretty fast.
Right, away
Because
from you.
away from you, and when you dump it pretty fast, the water comes out of the pot. So, all right, so I'm going to carry it over to the sink,
Okay.
and then I'm going to make a splash, like that, okay? Now I'm going to put it back down, and you're going to try it.
Good grip.
So that's the third step, draining the spaghetti. So how do you think you did with that?
Pretty good. I was glad that you did the first bit, though.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy when you first carry the pot over it, and you have to get that quick pouring mechanism. So take it all together. I'll talk to you for a minute, and then I'll let you eat your spaghetti. Now, what were the three steps? We're just going to have a little review. You've made spaghetti twice,
Yes.
and you ate spaghetti twice.
That's right.
And before we wash up the dishes, I just want to take a minute to talk about how did it go. So what do you think about how you did with cooking spaghetti this time? Because this time you did it almost all yourself.
I remembered all the steps. I remembered to choose the right pot and to put the water in and get it boiling right to a boiling, rolling boil, you called it, before I put the spaghetti in. And then I just kept an eye on the time, and I tasted it, and it wasn't quite ready. And then when I tasted it again, it was perfect. I poured the water out, and I ate my spaghetti.
So it sounds like you think you did a pretty good job.
I did.
You remembered all the parts.
Yep.
You did all the parts correctly.
I think so.
Your spaghetti came out fine.
Just right.
If you make spaghetti another day, what do you think you might want to do differently?
Maybe try a different kind of noodle.
Okay. So why don't we make a plan? Do you want to try that on your own? Or do you want me to be with you when you cook another kind of noodle?
I think I can do it by myself, and I can tell you all about it.
Okay, so what kind of noodles would you like to try next time?